Hello everyone, it's Silvia from Tarot. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to have a look at the top 10 most anticipated mass market releases of decks that have been previously printed out as independent. So it feels like we've been really spoiled this year, especially by the mass market publishing companies, because I think that after 10-15 years they had the right idea finally to listen to the tarot community, have a look at what the favorite decks of everyone's are, and understand that obviously if someone is willing to spend hundreds of dollars on an indie deck, there's a lot of people that probably cannot afford that, or that they don't want to spend hundreds of dollars on a deck, but they will eventually spend 20, 30, 40 dollars on a mass market edition of that deck. And so we've been really spoiled, but 2024 seems to be one of the best years yet when it comes to mass market releases. And also the second part of 2024 in specific seems to be when we can expect the best releases yet. So let's have a look. So I'm going to start with a deck that was released on I believe the 3rd of July, so it still counts as the second part of the year. I do have already the mass market copy. However, in this video, I'm only going to show you the indie decks. And the reason why I'm doing that is because, well, first of all, because most of the releases are not out in the market yet, so I don't have them. But I feel like I don't necessarily want to make a comparison between the indie deck and the mass market deck. I feel that we'll be able to do that probably at the end of the year, but this is not the point of this video. The point of this video is to let people know that if they have been waiting for a very specific indie deck that for some reason they couldn't afford, or maybe it was printed in a country that did not ship to your own country, or for whatever reason it was just constantly in your wish list but you can never get it, then now you might actually be able to. So let's start with this one. This is the Black Violet Tarot by Heidi Phelps. This one has already been released on the 3rd of July. As I said, it has been released by Rockpool, and it is a testament to how much Rockpool is changing this year, because they have actually released a couple of decks that were tarot decks as opposed to oracle decks. Oracle decks seem to be their main market, but the second part of the year they've actually taken a lot of hints from the tarot community, and they are starting to release more and more tarot decks. So one thing that I noticed about going from indie to mass market, there's obviously a few changes in the decks here and there. In this one in particular, for example, it will be the backs. The backs will not be like this one. But I have to say, when I look at the overall production, I think they're doing a really good job. And we'll talk about it when I'll show you another couple of decks. Most of the time, the main difference that I can notice, at least so far, by the description of the mass market editions, is that these decks will actually come with a guidebook. So far, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've ever seen a mass market deck that does not come with a guidebook. But on the other hand, there are a few indie decks that did come without a guidebook, or perhaps they had a guidebook, but it was just as a PDF file that you had to download at some point. And so that is a plus. It's always interesting to have a guidebook, and granted, sometimes unfortunately it's not a great guidebook. And if we think about Los Scarabeo decks, most of the time, especially the tuck boxes, are just little white books, and you do get 1 or 2 keywords per card, which is not necessarily helpful. What I do love about a good guidebook is when you actually get to know the reason why the creator chose the image they chose to portray for that particular card, so the thought process that goes behind the creation of a deck. So this is the Black Violet Tarot. I can already tell you that this is the mass market edition of this deck is almost 100%, you know, very similar to this one. Even the cardstock is not too dissimilar. It is slightly thinner, but this is something that I will not be able to tell you this for each and every deck, because as I said, I don't have the new mass market releases because they're still, you know, in the future, but they will happen sometime in the next 6 months. The next deck, and by the way, there's no particular order in the decks that I'm going to show you. This is the Burnstone and Earth Flesh Tarot by Avalon Cameron, illustrated by my favorite Anatolian. This has been a long, and I mean a long time coming, the mass market version of this deck. We have been hearing rumors about this deck coming mass market. We've actually heard it from Avalon Cameron herself. We've heard it from Anatolian herself. In particular, Anna has been sharing in her Instagram account, which I highly recommend you follow if you're interested in these decks, in her artwork, because she's very prolific. She's posting very often, and more often than not, she's actually giving out really interesting news about her upcoming decks. And what, in my experience, it is the way in which I got to learn about news about these decks. But as I said, this one has been a long time coming, because we've heard about it a couple of years ago. At the beginning, we thought it was just wishful thinking, because obviously this was an out-of-print deck and it actually reached really high prices whenever you wanted to buy a copy. Then what happened was that Avalon Cameron actually found a few decks that were still belonging to the first edition. I don't know whether it was out of the Kickstarter or maybe a more public release of the deck. So she put them on for sale in her website. Sorry about that, let me just zoom in, because I realized that we can see the card a lot better when we zoom in, duh. And so we heard about this possibility at the beginning, but then she released these decks that she still had in stock. And I believe, I think I remember correctly when I say she was marking them at $444 US per deck, which, for what I know, but I could be wrong, is the highest a creator has ever been pricing their own decks. It is true that some decks now, for example, I'm thinking about the Collective Tarot, the Delta Enduring Tarot, or the Slow Holler Tarot, but in some decks by Bybee Studio, you will see them resold on Facebook or eBay or Etsy for even higher prices than that. But originally, they were not sold for high prices. They were sold for normal prices for an indie deck. So perhaps, yes, a couple $100. So $444 US was the highest I've ever seen an actual creator selling their own decks for. And I am not here to debate whether there was a good price or not. I personally probably cannot say anything about it, because I actually bought this deck secondhand and I spent a lot of money on it. The reason why I did that, and I was okay with that, and I'm still okay with that, even though now I know that it's coming out mass market, is because I absolutely love this deck and I was willing to do it. I don't regret it, and I still feel really good when I look at this deck. I know, however, that the new mass market deck, which unfortunately we had not been told yet who the publisher will be. There's rumors that it's going to be US Games, but there's absolutely no confirmation. We do know, however, thanks to Anna's post in her Instagram account, that some of the cards will be different. And we also know that this really chunky monkey of a guidebook that you can see here, you can see how chunky this is, will not be the one that they will receive when buy the mass market edition. So personally, I'm really happy that I have the indie edition. But then again, if you let's say, I know there's a lot of people who spend a lot of money on the Majestic Earth. I honestly wouldn't. It's not a deck that will convince me to spend $400 or $500 on it. And but I know, but it's just a personal taste. So I know that obviously the amount of money you're willing to spend on a deck is very subjective, it's very personal, and it depends on really what you feel comfortable with. So Having said that, I also know that there's a lot of people, and myself included, that would not spend full $500 on the Majestic Earth. But if it did come mass market, I would more than happily probably pay $60, $70, $80 on it, because I will be happy to have it. And so that goes for each and every one of these decks. So what I'm willing to say is this, that if you never felt like spending that much money on the Burnstone and Earth Flash when it was out indie, you might be willing to spend 60, 70. I don't know how much is gonna be marked for, but you know, definitely a mass market price will be more affordable. You know, if you still want to have this deck in your collection, there are going to be a few changes. One thing that I really hope for is that there will go for a better quality gilding, because I don't know if you can see, but this red is one of the worst one when it comes to chipping. As you can see, I don't use this deck that often, but it's already really heavily chipped, which is making me kind of sad, but then again, I understand it's just a choice that has been made. And since we're talking about Anatolian's work, the Tarot of Echoes, we know already it has been confirmed that it will be coming out mass market sometime next year, 2025. We cannot wait. I know that I was talking about decks that will be released in the next 6 months, but it's rumored to be released at the beginning of 2025, so it does still count. Now this is the indie edition, as I was mentioning. The good news is that there will be a guidebook for the mass market edition. This deck did not come with the guidebook, which is a pity, because it would have been fantastic. But then again, I mean, if you love her artwork, this is definitely one of the decks that you might want to purchase. And just as a side note, I'll have you know that there is also another deck illustrated by Anna, which is called the Pathway Oracle, and it is going to be released mass market in the next month or so. I am not entirely sure about the release date in Australia. We always get decks after 3, 4, 5 months of the official release, which is related to a number of marketing and logistics reasons. But in any case, yes, there is this oracle. It was not firstly produced as an indie deck. That's the reason why I did not include it in the video. But it is, you know, a side note, if you love Anatolian's work, you will see that that deck is right down your alley. This deck is amazing. It was conceived by Anna as a companion, let's say, deck to combine with the Oracle of Echoes. It is called the Tarot of Echoes. If you don't have the Oracle of Echoes, unfortunately, there are no rumors so far that I know of that that Oracle is coming mass market. But I'm really keeping an eye on the Pathwork Oracle, because I do believe that it will pair up really nicely with the Tarot of Echoes. It is amazing, beautiful. The colors are fantastic, the line work is amazing. I just absolutely love this deck, so I am really looking forward to see what they're gonna do when it comes mass market. The next deck I want to talk about is also one of my favorite decks, and it's the Curious Travels Tarot deck by Arothéar, and this is an amazing deck. I am so very happy that I have the indie edition. I know that there is already a release date. I think it's going to be August, and the publisher is US Games again. I also know that there's going to be a couple of changes, but not terrible ones. And ironically, what I think by looking at the images, because as I said, I don't have the mass market deck, but looking at the images, it looks like you see this here. So this is gold foil, but it's a matte gold foil. I think they're actually gonna keep it on the cards as well. That is what it reads from the description. And as I said, I haven't seen the deck, so I don't know what the results will be. Sometimes I feel that this gold foil can actually be a little bit distracting. When it's matte, like in this case, it's not distracting at all because it doesn't catch the light. You'll probably see, even if I move the card like that, it doesn't catch the light. But there are decks where there's a combination of really glossy gold foiling that do result in a bit of a distraction for me. So I'm really happy with this edition. I had no idea what they were going to do for the mass market. So as I said, I'm really not regretting buying this deck, because I really enjoy it. The cardstock is absolutely amazing. It does have that kind of really soft velvety feel to that, but it's not one of those heavy rose petal ones that actually make it so that the cards stick one to the other. So it feels like really, really well. It shuffles really, really well. When it comes to divination, this deck is amazing because it reads really nicely. It is, I would say, also aesthetically very pleasing because I do like this art style and I love the combination of the colors, but that is obviously a bit more subjective. You might not enjoy these kind of colors, or you might do, you never know. But in any case, this one is coming up very soon. There is a slight difference. I believe this image that has been chosen for the box is not the same, so there will be a different one. I believe is the lion, which I'm kind of, you know, looking forward to have it in my hands and see if it works out or not. And also very, very pleased to say that there will also be a guidebook for this deck, because the indie deck did not come with a guidebook. Another deck that is coming on mass market, and there's already a listing for this release. However, I don't necessarily know. Again, I don't necessarily know when it's going to be released in Australia. This is the Millennial Tarot, and I have to say I'm so here for the mass market release, because even though I loved the concept of this deck, and that's the reason why I actually this was a present from my birthday a year and a half ago from my husband. So obviously I told him he would not have known that I would have loved this deck. But back then, so let's just talk about this deck by showing you the cards, because I think it's the best way. So back then we were kind of new to the AI scenery, and so what happened was that we were looking at this deck, or at least personally, and also the people I was talking to in the tarot community, and we felt that like there was some kind of vibe coming out of this deck that was actually really pleasing. This is a very primitive, I would say, a use of AI. So it is almost entirely generated by AI, even though there is some, let's say, human-driven manipulation of the images. Back then, I didn't know what to think about these decks. I liked it. I liked the colors. I actually loved also the images themselves. I know that in many cases there's a lot of mistakes. I didn't, especially when it comes to the hands. Hands are apparently very difficult to reproduce faithfully when it comes to AI. But what really convinced me about this deck was the keywords or titles associated with the cards, and also the fact that at the bottom of the card you also have some kind of a numerological meaning of the cards themselves. And I also liked, let's say, the combination between the keywords and the title and the images. I think that this deck paved the way for a thoughtful use of AI, which doesn't necessarily mean that we're there yet. I don't think that we have enough regulations in the market, especially when it comes to capitalizing on AI art, so monetizing it. I don't think we have enough regulations to be sure 100% that everyone like us who are customers are entirely aware of the fact that we're buying a product that has some AI in it. On the other hand, though, I do believe that we are making progress, and I'm not just completely against it. I'm not completely for it. I think that I always reserve my judgment deck by deck, or artistic endeavor by artistic endeavor, because I believe to keep an open mind and just have an understanding, or a better understanding, of how a deck is produced, and that is definitely going to help me decide whether I want to purchase the deck or not. But as I said, the keywords on this deck are absolutely fantastic, especially when it comes to, for example, the suit of swords, so the suit that has been renamed thoughts. it works really, really well. Another thing that I'm looking forward about the mass market production of this deck is the fact that it looks from the listing that is going to be a slightly smaller kind of size, which I'm very happy about, because this one was not very easy to handle for me. I do have small hands. And I believe that they were going to do something about the cardstock as well. Another thing that I am very pleased about is the fact that it's going to come with a already printed and provided guidebook, which was not the case in this deck. There was a guidebook indeed, but it was achieved by scanning a QR code, and then you had to download the file. So I'm very happy to see what the result of the mass market production will be. Very, very anticipating this deck. And the next deck is going to be Produce Smart Market, and we finally have an actual date. We finally have a publisher, which is going to be Rockpool, and it was a long time coming. It's the Lumina Tarot, which is an amazing deck. It's really, really beautiful. I do have the indie edition of this deck, and again, I'm actually quite happy about having it. And it's also because I did notice a couple of differences when it comes to, let's say, the indie edition versus the mass market edition. Namely, for what I could see, and I could be wrong because these are the first images that I've seen, the borders are slightly larger. So as you can see, the borders here in the indie edition are not very obtrusive. They're just minimal, and they don't take away anything from the cards. As a matter of fact, I've seen a lot of people trimming these borders off and not losing much when it comes to the real estate of the cards themselves. However, the borders on the mass market edition do look slightly more similar to the mass market French edition of this deck. So this deck was actually mass market for quite some time. However, it was just available in a French edition together with the Connected and Free Oracle, which is by the same creators. And what happened was that I really did not like those borders. The publisher of the English edition, as I said before, is Rockpool, and this one has a release date, which I believe it's September. So very soon you'll be able to grab a mass market copy of this deck. There's a lot to say about this deck. This deck is not a recent deck, let's say not a recent in the sense that it was not released in the last couple of years. Let me just double check. All right, I checked the guidebook, but I couldn't really find the printing year, but I'm pretty sure. Oh, there is a year here, sorry about that. So 2015, as you can see here. I don't know if you can see through the lens, but it does say 2015. So as I said, it's not a super recent deck. 2015, by the time in which the mass market edition will come out, will be the end of 2024. So it's almost 10 years ago, 10 years prior. And I do believe that 10 years ago, when it comes to inclusivity, we were just really not there yet. So you will see there's a lot of picture perfect kind of people in this deck. There's not a lot of diversity when it comes to body type, but also when it comes to age, even though I just showed you a card where there was an older kind of person. But even so, you still feel like there's a lot that should be done about this deck. There's a lot of people that are just responding to some canon of beauty that are just not valid anymore, that just don't resonate with us anymore. And so I don't know what the perception will be about a mass market deck now that we do have fantastic decks out there that indeed are more inclusive. So I have no idea. I'm expecting that there will be a lot of sales of this deck because there'll be a lot of people that originally wanted to get in possession of the indie edition, but they couldn't because it went out of print. And so they'll probably reach out for a mass market. And let me tell you, it's going to be very affordable because Rockpool decks are never too expensive. So obviously, if it were me, to be honest with you, I would probably check it out. If I didn't have the indie edition, I would definitely check it out, even knowing that I would definitely love to see a bit more diversity in the cards themselves. This one, by the way, pairs up really, really well with the Connected and Free by the same creators. Very excited about this. There's not going to be a lot of changes, but as I said, the borders do look like like they're going to be slightly wider, which is going to cut into the artwork a little bit, but I don't think that will be a deal breaker for anyone. Another deck that everyone is super excited about finally being able to get a copy of in a mass market edition is the Desert Illuminations Tarot by Lindsay D. Williams. I have the first edition of the indie deck. I absolutely am in love with this deck. It's an absolute joy to use. I think it's like a good mood kind of deck. It makes me happy by looking at the cards, the images, the characters, the colors, even the really lovely soft linen touch of the cardstock is amazing. I really enjoyed this deck. There was a guidebook that came, I think you had to purchase it aside the deck. I don't remember. In any case, I do have a guidebook for this deck, and the good news is that this deck, when it's gonna come out mass market, we will also have a guidebook included. I'm not entirely sure whether it will be the same guidebook as the ones we had to purchase when we purchased this deck. And I'm also not entirely sure, but it looks like the cards will be more similar to the second edition of this deck. So there won't be borders. And I believe also the backs will be slightly different and some of the cards will be different. There's not a lot that, you know, I absolutely love this deck. I love the concept. I love everything about it. So I think I'm actually gonna buy the mass market edition as well, even though I do prefer this first edition to the second one. I really think it's one of those decks that puts a smile on my face whenever I use it. It is, other than that, it's actually a really, really good deck when you want to read with it. And I really appreciate it because in this case, when there's a deck that everyone loves for one reason or another, it is difficult to see whether it's going to be picked up mass market. I don't know necessarily why, but it has to deal with marketing, of course, and it's also got a lot to do with the creators themselves. Perhaps they don't like the terms of the contract. But whether the publishing industry has become better in dealing with the creators, I don't know what happened. But when they actually come out with these decks that they actually know that the tarot community really love, I see that as a great opportunity, a great gift that these publishers are giving the tarot community. Obviously, it's a marketing and a profitable operation for them as well, because they kind of know that they're going to sell the decks. Of course, it's not really, it's a given. But at the same time, I am very, very grateful about the opportunity of getting these decks. Now, let's have a look at another deck. I'm actually not entirely happy, or at least I don't really know how to feel about the fact that it's coming out mass market, and it's the Liberation Tarot. Now, I got this out of a Kickstarter last year, and I only just received it, I believe, around October, November. This one had a fantastic marketing, and I have to say that was sold more on the marketing than the deck itself. And this is teaching me a lesson, because I was naive in thinking or in believing 100% of what was said about this deck. So everyone was talking about this deck, and they were saying that this deck would have been the next collective tarot. It was literally something you could read in the campaign of the Kickstarter production. So when I heard immediately afterwards, and it was literally, I heard it by December. So I received the deck in October, November. By December of the same year, I read and I heard that this was gonna fast track into mass market publication. And for my understanding, this was something that was actually already known at the time of the campaign. Now, I am not entirely sure, so I don't think I can actually say much about that. But if that was the case, I'm not really happy about it, because I believe that when we are asked to participate to a Kickstarter campaign, there's a couple of things that happen. You trust, as a customer, I trust the creator, I trust them entirely in what they're saying. And when they're asking for a certain price because obviously Kickstarter campaigns are not cheap. They are slightly cheaper than when the deck is going to go out indie, and that is one of the premises why there's a lot of people backing Kickstarter campaigns, because we believe that we're actually being given a preferential price as opposed to when the deck is going to hit the shelves, not mass market, but as an indie deck. This deck was not released after its initial campaign on Kickstarter. It was not released as an indie deck. So we paid a really high price for a deck that they already knew it was going to be produced mass market at a much lower price. That is what is kind of upsetting me. Even though, as I said, I do love the deck. I do believe that it is one of those collaborative deck that actually works really, really well. The guidebook is amazing. So, whenever I feel like I'm kind of upset about what happened, but I look at the deck, I feel a lot better. And ultimately, I just want more people to have it because I don't necessarily see it around much. I don't see it on TarotTube, I don't see it on Instagram or TikTok. So it means that obviously, perhaps that Kickstarter campaign was not that successful, or at least it reached the funding goal. Obviously, otherwise it wouldn't be here. But on the other hand, I don't believe that it went over by a lot, because not a lot of people have this deck. It is very, very interesting. As I said, it is a collaborative effort, so obviously you will notice some kind of discrepancies, or at least the fact that it's not entirely cohesive when it comes to the art style, but it doesn't really bother me, to be perfectly honest, and I'm actually really enjoying this deck when I use it for readings. Again, if it's true that the creators knew that this deck was going to go out mass market at a much lower price very soon after the Kickstarter campaign, I don't see why then they would have asked customers like myself to back the Kickstarter campaign. Maybe the Kickstarter campaign was a condition for the publisher to release the deck mass market. I have no idea. But in any case, it doesn't really make that much sense to me. Am I missing something? Let me know in the comments below. In any case, this is coming out mass market, and it's the Liberation Tarot. Next up, I don't have the indie deck, but I do have the indie edition of the guidebook. Let me just zoom out because it is rather large. And yes, it is the Mythologia Finnica Tarot by Susanna Salo. Finnica means Finnish, basically, and it is based on Finnmark. So it's not just Finland, but it's the region between the northern part of Finland, Norway, and Sweden that is called Finnmark. I have been there. I have been a guest of a Sami community, which was an amazing experience. It was the middle of winter. We've been doing a lot of activities together with them. We slept in the tents that they normally use to sleep in. And it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. We've seen the Northern Lights, we've heard legends, we've heard, all the lore that you hear sitting in front of a fire and eating the traditional food of the Sami. So I am very much interested in this, so much so that I actually purchased the book. And I find it very, very interesting. I didn't let's say that originally I wasn't crazy about the images on the cards, particularly because this is a very specific deck that doesn't necessarily feel like a tarot, or at least it doesn't feel like it ties back to the traditional tarot system that we have out there. So obviously the IWS or the Thoth or Marseille, it does seem to have a very specific kind of system that it follows, but it is very, very interesting. And as I said, the cards themselves, the art style is really beautiful, and it is fascinating to read the book. So I am very excited that Rockpool again has been picked up this deck, and is going to release in mass market in the next couple of months, again at a very affordable price. So we'll be able to have a look at what they did. So the next one up, I don't even have the indie edition of that deck, and it's the Tarot of the Cosmic Seeds. And it's a deck that only just recently has been, we've heard the news that is coming out mass market. It is within the next 6 months. There is a listing on Amazon that you can check out if you want. This deck is really beautiful. It's a collage kind of deck. The only reason why I don't have the indie edition is because simply it was on my list, but I just never got to buy it. And there's also an oracle deck that is available by the same creator that pairs up really well also with the collage kind of style. It is a really beautiful one, and I'm actually very happy that it's coming out mass market, because obviously the indie deck would have been quite expensive for me, including the shipping cost, but the mass market is obviously more affordable. So I'm looking forward to that deck as well. And then last but not least, this is actually out of the 10 decks because I don't really have any kind of confirmation about it. So this is the Poesis Oracle and by Andrea Wan, and this is the English edition, and the English edition is indeed indie. So the reason why I'm mentioning this deck is because for a couple of years already, we've had the possibility to get a mass market edition of this deck, but it was just in French language. Now, this deck is actually really beautiful because what happens is that it is called the Poesis Tarot, Oracle, sorry. You can just use it as an oracle. You can look at the images and you can see the keyword associated, which is very, very potent, very powerful. It is one of the most abrasive decks, oracle decks that I've got. If you're looking for a hug deck, this is not your deck. It's not what it does. It really is very intense, very confronting at times. Many of these cards really leave you like you really need to think about the meaning for you of the cards themselves, but it is also incredibly effective when you want to do some journaling, some meditation. This is very, very powerful. I absolutely love pairing it with the Yokai Yochi Tarot, for example, because it does have similar kind of color palettes, and I really enjoy that, but it does go for a kind of a shadowy kind of reading. It is the mind equivalent to what the Reclaim Oracle is to the body. So if you're more familiar with the Reclaim Oracle, and you will use it for a kind of a touch base with your own feelings related to yourself, the way you look, the way you feel, etc. This is the mind equivalent of that. So this is almost as if we were doing some kind of a taking stock of what your thoughts are. And I love that in a deck because I am an air sign. So obviously the mind is very, very important for me. So the reason why I cannot confirm that this is coming out mass market in an English edition is simply because I've heard about it a couple of months ago, but then again, I haven't seen any listings about it. I haven't seen or heard any further rumor about it. It is definitely a deck that I would consider buying if it came out mass market, simply because I have a feeling that they would definitely print out a guidebook with it. This one didn't come with an actual guidebook. It did come with a bit of a leaflet here that you can see, but there is a lot of let's say resources that you can see online on the website, because it does come with poems for each and every card. So this is nice, but you know, if they did come out with an actual guidebook, that would definitely be the reason why I would definitely splurge for the mass market edition, even though I do have the indie one. So again, if you heard something else about it, please let me know in the comments below. But again, I cannot confirm because I've only heard it once, that it could have maybe the deal fell through, so I have no idea. But in any case, let me know if there's others that I missed. I'm always looking forward to hear what you think, and if you've heard something else. One of you, for example, in a couple of weeks ago in a video, you mentioned that there's going to be a Seasons of the Witch tarot deck, which made me very, very excited about it, because I absolutely love the Seasons of the Witch oracles decks. But And also, I'm interested to know which one of these, if you have the indie edition, would you also buy the mass market one? Because, you know, it's people may have different reasons to do a purchase. But thank you so much for watching, and for now, have a great day.